Hey, everybody. Welcome to the gathering. I am David Ault. It's a pleasure to have you here. I went to two graduations in the same day this weekend, and I was reflecting upon all of the little juicy nuggets that the commencement speakers gave. And the morning graduation that I went to, this woman has had an illustrious career in medicine and at the CDC, and now she is the dean, I believe, at Spelman College. And she was telling the big, huge class, over 600 students, that maybe what she was about to say was a little unorthodox, because these types of commencement speeches are all about, you know, knowing your aim and moving forward and having intention and being committed and all that kind of stuff. And she basically was saying, that's all well and good, but I want to add something to the mix. She said that there was this old hunting terminology called soft focus, and that it was wise for the hunter to not be so rigid in their aim because things are constantly moving. And to be able to develop soft focus meant that you were better adapting to the environment. Your reflexes were more in harmony with the rhythm of the earth. And she said, I think that that is the thing that has helped me the most, because everything that I thought I was going to do when I was sitting where you're sitting, as she spoke to the graduates, didn't happen that way. Nothing happened as planned. And somewhere along the line, I realized the necessity for soft focus. And then it was the thing that saved me. It was the thing that kept me from drowning in disappointment and rigid expectation. And I began to become so used to that it has served me well in my entire life, because it has gave me a sense of flexibility and unearthed a necessary wisdom for me to be able to do the work that I do. And I smiled so big when she said that, soft focus. And I thought, that's an amazing gift to give to these students, because we, without realizing many times, we were unconscious to the fact of how rigid our thinking can be, how rigid our thinking can be with regards to cultivated belief. And it's quite something to discover that that's the way that we are, that I didn't realize I was so carving everything into stone, but that the world in its fluidity and its ever-changing rhythm and the nature of that is going to be much more palatable and manageable and even victorious for us in our soul and in our being and in our mindset and in our sensibilities, if we have a cultivated sense of soft focus. And I thought, in what arena might that benefit us most? And I started thinking about, the carving things into stone. I started to think about how we do that with people, particularly people from our past. And there are many people that we have interfaced with that we have disappointments in, we have frustration with, we have conflict with. And if we left those particular situations and then moved on and into other groups of people, oftentimes when we think about those people, we think about them with a hard focus, because that is where we last encountered them. And so if they were very unkind, then what we hold in our mind about them, the framework that we hold in our mind, is that they're just unkind people. And so we never give them any leniency towards their own evolution. And if you stop and think about ourselves and the mistakes that we have made in our younger years and in moments of unconsciousness. The way in which we may have disappointed someone, or the way in which we may have messed up or created conflict. Do we want those people to think about us the way we were in those younger years? There's a great word called concretize. Root word is concrete. And so when we concretize things, people, in those static moments of time, then we are prohibiting the consideration that they have evolved. If people do that to us, then they are not considering that we perhaps, hopefully, have evolved. And so when she talked about soft focus, I thought this is a really good, significant point to bring that in, to overlay that and apply that. And of course, there's going to be all kinds of schools of thought and wisdom about, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And so we build this culture of being careful. We build this culture around keeping people concretized. And so, we're not going to allow that into the field, the peripheral area of our lives anymore because we have grown. Again, that's fine and good as well. But there is something about a mindset, about creating a static belief in mistrust, no matter if it's an individual or a collection of people, because the snowballing of that, the accumulation of that, then becomes not just about the individual. It becomes a mindset by which we see the world. And before you know it, we have developed a belief system that says, we have to be careful because people are going to bring conflict into our lives. We have to be careful because you can't trust people. You have to be careful because people are going to take advantage of you. And that does have some interwoven collaboration with a hard focus belief about the story and who did us wrong. So I'm looking at then soft focus as something therapeutic. As we think about, reflect upon any of those people that when they come up in our mind, we go, oh, and we roll our eyes. What if we made a list of those people? What if we made a list of sort of those that we have a grievance with, no matter how justified the grievance is? And we thought, let's practice soft focus. Let's think about them. Let's think about the possibility of how they may have evolved. Let's actually see them, practice visualizing them having evolved and seeing them being all of the qualities of goodness and kindness and fairness and wisdom and discernment and creativity that they give to the world. We see them emanating all of these things that we want to emanate. Like, you actually take a moment and you visualize that person, the soft focus that has allowed them the opportunity to blossom. And then by doing that, does that have any impact on the way in which we see ourselves and we see our world? I thought that was a really great idea. I pulled off the bookshelf some of the work of Emma Curtis Hopkins, one of the revolutionary metaphysicians in the end of the 19th and then to the early 20th century. And she was talking about, what was the term she used? Rendering the veil. Rendering the veil, meaning to lift, to penetrate the veil representing, as the Hindus would call it, Maya, or the grand illusion. And when we hold or concretize people in this static place, we're actually holding them in an illusion. We're holding them in an identity that is separate from what we could say is their spirit nature. And, no matter how justified we are in doing that, if we do that with regularity, and let's say we just, one person after another, oh, can't trust them, can't trust them. So now we have created this sediment, this stacking of all of this stuff. And so the veil then has just continued to get more and more heavy, more and more laden. So to render the veil means that we have to consider that spirit is there, that spirit, or the true self of any individual, no matter who they are or what they've done. Let me say that. Any individual, no matter who they are or what they've done, they too are not separate from, they too are an emanation of something that is spirit nature, that is whole, that is complete, and that is perfect. That's mighty work. That's a big thing. That's to me, I look at certain aspects of spirituality and the methods and the practices that we do, and I find some of them to be just mastery level. And I think that this is one of them. And so she was talking about rendering the veil. And she says, thus each of us is spirit. If all being is spirit, then I am spirit. So now, rather than read what she has written in first person, I'm going to read it as though I'm thinking about somebody that I have concretized or I have held in hard focus. Thus, each of us is spirit. If all being is spirit, then they are spirit. And if spirit cannot be in poverty or debt, they cannot be in poverty or debt. If spirit cannot be burdened, then they cannot be burdened. If spirit cannot be sick, then they cannot be sick. All these conditions are nothing to spirit, and so they are nothing to them. I am not deceived by any of them in my own life or in that of those around me. So when I think about that statement, again, this is some hardline, old-fashioned metaphysics that is not denying the things that happen to us physically, but it's addressing the wholeness within us, regardless of the appearance that never dies. So even in the appearance of illness, even in the appearance of hardship, and even in the appearance of deep, burdening situations, what we are given the opportunity to do is not deny what's going on in the humanness, but to open ourselves up to have a soft focus and envelop in the beautiful rhythm and the flow of that which is spirit, that even in the apparent absence of is there. So it's like calling forth. If I'm sick, I'm not going to say, I'm not sick. That's not me. That's not my teaching. But what I am going to do and what I can do is I can say, and I know that wholeness is there. And so I'm going to call wholeness forward. So we're going to direct this back again to the conversation at hand, which is these people, those in our lives that we have held a hard focus on. And now we're going to introduce soft focus, and we're going to see them as evolutionary beings, beautifully moving more and more deeper into self-awareness. And so whatever it is about them that was the characteristic, I'm now going to see the characteristic of spirit in them. Does that make sense? And then she says this is the only understanding that works practically, bringing external forms into new combinations. We worship spirit, appreciating the gifts of spirit in all its forms, and we let the forms alone. We don't try to change them. They change themselves by our recognition of spirit. I have to read that again. So, we worship spirit. We do what? We recognize and acknowledge this perfect patterning that must exist, even when we can't see it in our human experience. We recognize it. We even appreciate the gifts, the moments when we have been able to touch it, to experience it, to manifest through it as it in us. We appreciate that in all of its forms. And we let the forms alone. We don't try to change them. We don't try to battle the world of effect at the level of effect. We don't try to change them. They change themselves by our recognition and our honoring of spirit. It's what Wayne Dyer used to say: when you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at change. Isn't that beautiful? And so soft focus, to me, became this exercise where I'm going to change the way that I look at things. I'm going to change the way in which I hold this kind of hardened, chiseled opinion in stone about any of these people. And I'm going to play with, I'm going to practice seeing them evolved. I'm going to see them as spirit. I'm going to see them as contributing. And so by then right of consciousness, or by this formula, that then I don't change them, I change myself, I change the way that I look at them, and then thus the recognition of spirit is there. Will that happen? Well, why don't we do it together? Why don't we practice soft focus this week? So I'm a list maker. Maybe create a list of the people. It's kind of like maybe forgiveness work, but it has a different approach to it. There's a responsibility that we are taking in the way in which we perceive, and in being able to be flexible and having that soft focus. Then I wonder what wholeness and what healing properties can be emanated through us. Let's do it together. Thanks.